Let's do
The
it.
crowd is assembled.
We're in.
Woo! Hooray!
Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, welcome to Viral Transmissions, episode number 31, which we are titling this week, Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics. Joining me as usual is Dr. Rob Tarswell. We also have Dr. Katie Marshall joining us again. Welcome, Dr. Katie. Let's go through our numbers before we get to anything. Sorry for interrupting. We do this at the start of each show. We're up to 40.3 million cases in the world of COVID-19. That is up 2.9 million from last week. And we're up to 1.12 million deaths. That's another 40,000 deaths. USA is at 8.4 million cases. That is 0.45, 450,000 more cases, and 225,000 deaths. That's another 5,000 deaths. Canada is at 198,000 cases. That is 16,000 more cases than last week, and 9,760 deaths. That is an extra 147 deaths in Canada. So 20 a day in Canada. It's just not cool. So leading off our numbers news stories, sort of, we go into news, but we stick with the numbers first. Health officials in Minnesota have connected 24 coronavirus cases to people who attended presidential campaign events in the past month, most of them attendees at airport rallies hosted by President Trump.
Fascinating.
Is this my
Just
surprise
before we get into
cookie?
that. So for those wondering what these numbers mean, if you're a math type of person in the exponential curve, we are now here. We are in the phase of exponential climbing. That's why the numbers are getting so big so fast every week. And there's no indication that that's going to slow down. This is the thing we were hoping to avoid. I guess we did put it off for about 9 months. It is here. And no indication at this point that that train is slowing down at all.
I remember back when we were talking about this back at the first wave, and everybody, we talked about the pandemic, the 1918 Spanish flu, and we were like, yep, and in the fall, there's going to be another big resurgence of it, and it might be way bigger than this one. And all signs, if you look at the graphs, point to that being the case, that Canada's infection rates are on the upswing. I was looking at our World in Data today, and you can see the new infections per million, and Canada itself is jumping up into scary numbers. Even though we've been doing well. I think everybody's just been getting lax, not thinking it's a big deal.
And the easiest way to tell exponential growth is if you're on a log plot, you want to see, you don't want to see, what you don't want to see is a straight line on a log plot. And that is the definition of exponential growth. It's actually
a straight line up, you mean, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, so it's sometimes hard to eyeball an exponential curve on a linear plot, right? So that's where it's just number of cases or number of cases per population on the y-axis. But if you're in log space, by definition, if that line is like a perfectly, sort of straight line, then you're in exponential world. So.
Yeah. So like Canada's actually is in log. So I'm going to put this link into the chat. This is our World in Data right here. I really like this little data explorer they've got here. So one of the great things, so this is confirmed cases per million people, 7-day rolling average. It does not have the aligned outbreak, so this is just by date. So some countries took a little longer to get to places. And you can, on the right side, you can mouse over each of the individual countries, and then it will gray out all the other countries. So you can, I've added Canada here. It's normally not there, but the Canada growth in log is like, that's scary going up. And when you go linear, that gives you a real.
Put it up for the folks.
Let's do it.
Put it up. We can talk about
Let me pull this up and
so if you see it curving upwards in log space, that's just not good.
So here we go. So there it is. So this is
linear. Okay.
This is linear, and so here's Canada, like. There's our first little swell over here.
Yep.
And you can see we're over it now. Like we're past the one that was scary back in April, at the end of April. Yeah. And we're well over it, and it's just climbing up. United States also climbing up.
That's the roller coaster. Yeah.
Look at they back in April they went, oh, this is bad, and some of them sort of separated from each other, and they got a little better, and then they went, oh, this isn't so bad, and they went back to business as usual, and it skyrocketed at the end of July. There,
it was a hot summer in the USA.
Holy cow! And now it's just coming back. They're just getting up, down, and it's just gonna keep going up.
I saw a great animation of actually, so it was deaths, not cases in the United States, but over kind of time, and they mapped it out in geographical space. And so what's happening in the US is you kind of have this like sort of regionalization going, right? With the initial wave, mostly centered around New York, some in New Orleans. And then the next wave geographically was much more in the South. And then the new wave really seems to be happening in the Midwest.
Wow.
And so what's kind of
You're leading into our next round of stories.
We have stories with that. Go ahead, Rob.
That's wonderful.
Go ahead, Rob. Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, well, if you all remember, there's a certain town in North Dakota that likes having a big motorcycle rally. Probably the most famous town in America right now. I bet Dr. Marshall could probably, I'll just throw it out to you.
Uh-oh. No, I don't know the town.
Yes.
I am definitely
Sturgis.
not on top of my... Oh, Sturgis, yeah, the motorcycle rally, yes. And I don't know anything.
You knew, you just didn't know that you knew, yeah. So right now, North Dakota has a case rate of 870 per million people. That is number 1 on the planet. Yeah, way to go. Number 2, I think, is Azerbaijan. Let's confirm that.
And and we have another graph here to show.
Oh, we got graphs
of doom.
Whoop. There we go.
Oh, sorry. Czech Republic, currently at 740 per million.
I'm supposed to be there this summer.
So 890.
You're supposed to be in North Dakota or the Czech Republic?
The Czech Republic.
Yeah, don't go to either.
No. Yeah.
Don't go to
I was
either.
going to be in Prague. It was so great.
So this ketchup chip colored map is the current, and for those of you, American viewers, ketchup chips, they're a Canadian thing. They're not quite barbecue. They really do just taste like ketchup. And after all dressed, they are the second greatest gift
Yes.
in thin fried potatoes from God.
I hate them. I hate ketchup chips, and I hate all dressed.
Oh,
I don't know if we can do the show anymore.
I also don't like beer.
Wow.
It's all right. You can stay.
Just when you think you know a guy.
I know, right?
No.
So America is
Fucked.
trending poorly, or worse. That's a whole lot of ketchup red right there, meaning uncontrolled spread.
Yeah.
So as big as the numbers are now, they're going to be bigger next week, and they're going to be bigger the week after that, and they're going to be bigger the week after that, which is what uncontrolled spread means.
Yeah.
My favorite map is the map of university campuses and their current rate of spread. So I have a friend who's faculty at Clemson University, which in South Carolina is leading the pack in the United States.
Oh, have you got that map? Because you could just throw it up on the screen if you wanted.
Yeah. I think it's in the New York Times.
All right.
But yeah, it's there are college campuses in the United States that have more cases than some of our provinces. Just yeah. I don't know how to throw it up on here. And
all right.
what I could do,
send me the link.
Message it. Yeah, let me see. It's going to take me a little moment. Sorry.
No worries. Okay, while you do that, let's we've got some more stuff to talk about.
So speaking of where the new spread has come from, the Sturgis rally appears to be responsible for the spread of the coronavirus across the upper Midwest, which is really saying something. Oh, okay, there's the university map. Great. Are you able to throw that one up, Joe?
Yeah.
It's in Discord there.
Yeah.
So let's put this link up for all the folks at home. That here. And again, of course, because this isn't really being that's impressive.
So glad I'm not teaching in the U.S. these days.
Wow. Yeah. That could have been a thing.
Yep.
1,000 or more cases. And there's a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at 100 to 999. That feels like too big of a clump to me. Like, I would like
For those
that
who didn't
broken up
know.
into...
Yeah, for those who didn't know, there are a lot of post-secondary institutions in the United States of America.
And they all have COVID.
All of them. Because,
I don't know all of them, but yeah.
You know, I think if you can never say all of them because it might only be 99.5%. You know, it might only be like a 6 standard deviation thing.
Yep.
But let's say enough of them that it makes America look like it has smallpox.
Nope.
Say that.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, 2,034 cases. Oh my, Georgia, 3,888 cases.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Rob, I interrupted you with my shot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And this was kind of, I don't know if this was planned or what, but just about every university in the state said, let's go live in September. And I forget which university, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but there were a couple of physicists who decided to slum it in epidemiology, thinking, there's no big risk if we actually open up campuses. And now that we've given you this very simple model, can we get back to our advanced theoretical physics work? Immediately, cases exploded across the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the physicists, and they hadn't built into their model the possibility that 19-year-olds like to party with other 19-year-olds when they come back from summer holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I have a snarky comment about physicists and their social lives, but maybe that this is not the appropriate venue.
That's absolutely the appropriate venue. I mean, that was just pretty special. That of course, a pair of theoretical physicists would fail to model that teenagers go to parties when they're unsupervised.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and so, I mean, the hard thing,
Stockholm calling.
is that there is this kind of whole, and some of the conversation that's been going on amongst faculty is that we also feel that some of this is the universities kind of just opening up, not doing their due diligence, and then they knew what would happen with students, and then it's real easy just to blame this whole thing on the students, right?
Yeah.
So, and not really take a lot of responsibility for, you know, the fact that they're all sitting in classrooms together and inside, right? And so, you know, it's I would love to see the modeling by non-physicists at the end of all of this, trying to sort of separate out how much of this is student partying, how much of it is that students are living in residences and, you know, in really tight conditions, right?
And on meal plans at cafeterias.
Right?
And young and horny.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard enough to overcome when you're not 18 and on your own for the first time in your life. Like, come on. Like,
I mean, in our cafeteria when I was a grad student, we used to like sort of shake our fists at the med students who would wear their scrubs and lab coats into the cafeteria. And I was like, you know why you're wearing those, right?
Yeah,
like it's because you might get human gunk on them, and you wear it here where we're all eating.
Yeah. Those are your shit covered gloves, plumber. Like, you take your fucking toilet washing gloves off when you go to eat, goddammit. You don't go, oh, I better eat. I want to keep myself clean. I'll keep my gloves on. Shit dripping off them.
Just take the lab coat off. That's all we want.
Although
either that or
confession time. When I was in medical school, a lot of the times the reason we would be wearing scrubs and lab coats was for posing purposes, and those were no more microbially dangerous than
so they were fresh.
Your clean laundry in your drawer.
Right? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You took off
Dr.
your
Marshall.
Oh no.
She just stopped
We
moving.
hear you.
You're frozen on us.
Oh, well, I could just turn my camera off. And turn it back on.
Let's turn it off and then on again.
Just rejoin with your
hey,
camera.
there we go. You're
there
back.
You
okay.
All right.
Discord's been acting up a little bit lately.
So it's now getting hard to tell what is causing what in terms of the spread. I mean, even the most famous, the Rose Garden White House event, that's a super spreading event. There are more cases of coronavirus right now in the White House than there are in all of Atlantic Canada. But of course, it's not the only one, and it's not even the only one that wasn't tracked. So it's been very difficult to track what's going on at universities. It's been very difficult to track what's been going on because of Sturgis, where only 250,000 people from 61% of counties across the United States showed up, partied, and went home. But, you know, they did get to see some aging 80s rockers without having to go to a casino.
I have YouTube.
Yeah.
When I was in the States, we had a local casino that had aging rockers in it. Got hit by a tornado while the rockers were in it.
Whoa.
I was shocked to find out the rockers in question were actually the Beach Boys.
We've got more to talk about them later.
We're so glad we had you on the show tonight and didn't tell you anything, because that's going to lead into a major story later.
But that's for the end of the show. Right,
but that's for the end.
Yeah.
And oh boy, have we got a video for you kids.
Well, foreshadowing.
Yeah. The Beach Boys, or at least one of their former members, is still an active songwriter, and we've got his latest hit for you coming up at the top of the hour. Latest hit.
So in addition to not going to giant motorcycle rallies, you should probably stay out of the gym. We've covered a lot of gym outbreaks. Our next one is about Spinco.
So this is a Canadian story. We first picked it up last week in episode 30 when it was merely 24 cases. But now the Spinco outbreak, which, believe it or not, there are gyms in the Great White North running spin classes. Now, you want to talk about a droplet factory that is full of fans and recirculating that air, the hell through the room.
And also the people in there breathing lungfuls of air constantly, right? You're not sitting there just going, you're just sucking all those droplets in. Ugh.
Spin class is working your ass off on a stationary bike.
I just got the emails about my community gym again, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. So the Spinco outbreak, how many are they up to now, Joe?
72 is what the article says. Let me
72
see if
cases.
Let me see if I can find something newer. Spinco super spreader. It's probably still 72, but let's best first.
I can't hear a thing Rob is saying.
Oh, Rob, we just lost you. We just lost you, Rob. So Rob's going to try the cycle. We'll see how that works. 4 hours ago. So we're still up to 72 people in the Spinco outbreak. Let's hear you, Rob. No, still can't hear you. No, can see you, can't hear you. So I'll keep talking about Spinco here. Well, I don't have to. We
could just, hard GIF it the whole time.
No, can't hear you. I know. Do you want to try the turn Discord off and completely on again thing and come back to us? I'm going to talk about our second reinfection info while you're away, so we don't have dead air. So we've talked about second infections where people have had COVID, have gotten over it, and then caught it again. I think it's almost always a second strain, or always a second strain, as far as all the ones I can think of are a mutated strain. An elderly Dutch woman has become the first known person to die from catching COVID-19 twice. Let's hear you, Rob. Can we hear you? I still can't hear you. Wow. Don't know how to fix this. This is what happens with software that updates itself constantly and runs on multiple operating systems. Damn it. What if we could all try...
That's what I'm wondering.
I'm going to switch back to our title card and mute us, and we will be back once we fix this. We're so sorry for this technical problem. Here we go. We'll be right back, everybody.
All right.
All right, we're back. We fixed that problem, at least temporarily. Rob, we just covered the second reinfection, the elderly Dutch woman.
Yeah.
I just mentioned it. We haven't gone into any details. The woman, 89, suffered from a rare type of bone marrow cancer called Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. I think I got that pretty good, considering I hadn't read it before. So her immune system was compromised due to the cell-depleting therapy she received. So this is somebody who was immunocompromised.
Right. Hard to know what to make of that.
Yeah, it's hard to say, oh my God, we're all going to get second infections, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like hobbits. But what about second infections?
But yeah, second infections are sort of hard to detect because you would have to have done genotyping of the first infection. Isn't necessarily getting done in every single case. And then you would have to find someone who gets sick again, prove that they're sick again, and prove that they have a different genotype of the virus.
Right.
Which that involves multiple steps, so that's a higher level of proof. And so the cases worldwide are proven cases of reinfections.
Right.
So the number of actual reinfections is probably much larger, but there's no way of knowing how much.
Yeah,
there was a paper that just came out on Friday from a bunch of people from the COVID Genomics Consortium in the UK, and they're saying that they think reinfections are going to be kind of a big deal. And so it's, what I don't know, and I mean, so this COVID-19, the virus that causes it doesn't mutate as quickly as things like the cold virus or influenza. But it certainly is mutating, right? Once you have the more infections you have, the more copies and the more chance for, a mutation to arise, right? So, yeah.
More reasons to have nipped it in the bud early, people.
If only, eh? Yeah.
Like,
although the analogy that my favorite analogy from a virologist was if the flu mutates like an ivy bush, coronavirus mutates like a cactus. So it's not thought to be a big deal. Although the only big mutation so far was from a strain in Southeast Asia that made it far more infectious, and it's now the dominant strain on the planet. So evolution, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because, like, have you guys played Plague Inc?
Yep. Yeah.
So I've played this a lot, right?
Yeah.
And this was years ago,
yeah.
right?
Before it felt bad to play.
Now I won't play it.
Yeah.
But,
I don't like disease games anymore.
But I always used to, like, come up with some disease that didn't cause, it was asymptomatic mostly. It was like, would just kind of like spread pretty quietly. It wasn't a big deal. Yeah. And I think from what I've read, the thing that makes this so tough is asymptomatic spread is a thing that, that there's just, by the time you've detected it where you are, like, it's already there, right? So yeah.
And it's been there for a while.
Yeah. So the good thing about it, though, unlike Plague Inc., is that, when a new mutation comes up, right, that's like a little bud on a tree. It's not going to, it's not like everyone who has the virus is going to get that mutation simultaneously. So unlike Plague Inc. So, yeah.
Or unlike HIV, which actually just mutates inside your own body, and you actually end up like multiple subtypes of HIV in any single infection. Cancer does the same thing too, which is why chemotherapy fails, because you'll end up with different cell lines of cancer, almost multiple species of the tumor, and some are responsive to chemotherapy, some are not, and that's why you gotta go more and more toxic lines of chemotherapy until ultimately you end up with a multi-drug resistant cancer. And
yeah, the good thing about this is that it does seem to clear, at least, so there is that.
So vaccine, folks, vaccine, get the shield up. Get that shield up.
Yeah, vaccine, as opposed to let's just let it spread, as Sweden did. How are they doing, Rob? This is jumping back to an earlier article.
Yeah, Sweden, the control group. So let's have a look. How is the control group doing? Yeah. All right. One for fans of Sweden's COVID non-lockdown. Sweden's overall COVID fatality rate so far has been on a par with America's, and roughly 10 times that of Norway and Finland.
Yeah.
Anders Tegnell, Sweden's chief epidemiologist, expected to see COVID antibodies in 40% of Stockholm County residents by the end of May, but the actual level was... Any guesses? Any guesses?
I know the answer, so...
Anyone in the audience? Any folks at home want to guess?
Yeah, so they thought that it would
6.
be 40%. It's 6. Yeah.
6.
So what I don't understand about that, and we'd need someone like Dr. Ninka to tell us, is does that lack of antibody prevalence, does that indicate that not that many people got it? Or does that indicate that people didn't raise antibodies? And like, could you actually tell the difference between those things?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think most people who do get it do raise antibodies, but the antibody response sort of like after a few months it tapers off, right? Otherwise, you know, if you maintained a big antibody response to everything you've ever been exposed to, all of your lymph nodes would be the size of baseballs, and that's just no way to live. So you just all the antibodies go away, and you just have a few memory B cells kicking around that are like, okay, we've got that one. And they get called into action the next time it comes back, and then they can just expand monoclonally to boom, 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 pump out IgM, IgE, and mop it up early. So it could even be that they're just getting them in this phase and maybe missing. But if you are doing this within 3 months of active infections, it should be pretty easy to get antibodies. And I suspect that's what they're doing, and this is kind of similar to what we're seeing around the world. A whole lot of people die, even without a whole lot of people being infected, which shouldn't surprise anybody, because that's kind of what we've seen all along, right? Infection fatality rate between 0.7 and 1%, case fatality rate closer to 6%, and those rates massively jump in areas where hospitals get slammed and people are just basically sent home to die without oxygen.
But Rob, at least this saved their economy, right? Sweden's economy is doing great, especially compared to those other people, right? It was totally worth it.
Not locking down did not save Sweden's economy, which shrank faster than its neighbors in the second quarter of the year by 8.3%.
So I'm no economist, but from what I understand, you need people for an economy to work well.
Well, yeah, you need demand, and if people aren't going out because they're scared and they're not going to restaurants or not going to shops, then demand kind of goes away. There's all sorts of supply, no one's hoovering it up, and that's kind of a problem. So it's not even just the people who are actively sick, it's all the people scared of getting sick that are not participating in the economy. Okay.
But at least they had the plan to shield all of their vulnerable people.
Shield the vulnerable, right?
The care homes, right? Like that was the let the rest of the country get sick. The people who wouldn't die from it is likely. And we know that the numbers are still unacceptable. Like I don't want a 0.1% chance of dying. Like mine is way higher than that at my age. No. But I'm saying even like young people, like somebody 20 who's 0.1%. Even if I was 20, I'm not going to take a 1 in 1,000 chance of dying. Are you kidding me?
And there's other juicy stuff we'll be talking about later when we get into the science section.
But anyway,
did they protect the vulnerable? More than 40% of COVID deaths in Sweden have been in care homes. Bum, 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 bum.
So from what I understand as well about care homes, it's not like they're just sort of hermetically sealed to the outside or self-sustaining ecosystems in which, people don't work and,
care homes are not, they're not Biosphere 2. They have doors.
I'm no expert in this, but, like people make the food and they do the personal care.
People come to work. And they go home, and they come back.
No, I thought they had to
just
sleep in the basement. Like that's what care workers do, right? They just never go home.
And grow all their food in the sub basement.
And we keep all the old people in cocoons in the pool, right?
Oh, okay.
And aliens fix them. That is such an old fucking reference. I'm sorry.
I have no idea. Sorry.
There's a Ron Howard movie called Cocoon.
Oh,
it's about old people
right
who
up my alley.
Get rejuvenated by going into alien cocoons in the pool, and they come out all horny, and they're still old, but they're like, woohoo, let's party. Like it's cute. It's a cute movie. But Rob, again, going back to being a young person, 0.1% chance of dying, even if I'm okay with that, that's the worst, right? That's all that's going to happen. Just you roll those dice, 0.1%, and if not, you're totally fine, right?
Well, there's a University of British Columbia study following a cohort of 78 COVID patients. 75% of those patients are still symptomatic after 3 months. Half have irreversible lung scarring. We're now at the 3-month point. These folks are going to be followed out to about 2 years.
So when we talk COVID patients, are we talking people who were hospitalized or people who were just diagnosed?
These folks, let's see, what were they? I'm not sure if these were symptomatic, asymptomatic.
Hospitalized.
Folks on the ventilators, but the 78 former, including...
The study published in the European Respiratory Journal found 76% of patients hospitalized with COVID self-reported abnormal symptoms 3 months after they were infected, and 1/3 reported, quote, at least moderate impairment in major dimensions of quality of life, the journal posted online about the study.
Yeah. Now, I can't find severity data, though. Now, what's interesting, in a second study, which has been virtually accepted for publication, showed 83% of these same individuals had CT scans that showed inflammation of the lung, one that may resolve itself. 65% showed lung scarring, which is generally considered irreversible. Lung oxygen processing ability was compromised in 52% of the patients. Don't get the coronavirus.
Yeah. Is this the medRxiv paper you sent me?
That is not. No, that one is... where's the other one here? The medRxiv paper, this one I sent you is the one that's coming up next, which it's called Multi-Organ Impairment in Low-Risk Individuals with Long COVID. So low risk meaning young or people who are asymptomatic. You are just mousing like crazy there, Katie.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah. Oh,
ping,
sorry.
Ping,
I'm
ping,
just.
Ping, ping, ping,
I'm
ping.
looking at all the things
Yeah.
here. I just wanted to. I was thinking, Joe, if you could bring up one of the figures from it, that I thought they did a really nice job of actually showing some of these things.
Sure. What line number? Because it looks like it's all numbered.
So that medRxiv paper, that's a preprint, so meaning it hasn't been peer reviewed yet. So, but of course, COVID science is kind of being pushed out rapidly because of important findings. So this is subject to revision, but we're certainly seeing numbers here that aren't out of line with peer-reviewed science in young people who get the coronavirus. So
line number 705.
705. I see. All right, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This figure I actually thought was really great. It shows it's a Venn diagram of all the organ impairments from all of these patients.
Yeah, this was interesting.
So it breaks it up by organ, and you can kind of see, right, that like people who had for instance, I think that's
the liver.
God, I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know my vertebrate organs very well. The heart I can get.
So yeah, heart I get.
It's a liver.
Yeah.
So the top right is the liver, right?
Yeah.
And then what's bottom left?
That's the pancreas.
Pancreas.
And that's the
kidneys.
one.
Kidneys. That was my guess, but I thought it might also be gonads.
No,
but I guess they're upside down. I don't know.
Nope, that's just kidneys being kidneys. Yep.
But the cool thing, right, is it kind of shows, right, like the number with heart impairments and then sort of where it overlaps. So the pancreas and the heart seem to overlap quite a lot, whereas like the liver and the kidneys don't really seem to overlap in the same way, right? Yeah. And then the sort of other interesting thing is it breaks it up by people who are hospitalized and people who weren't. And so the red ones were hospitalized, the gray weren't. You can see, right, that huge number of people have heart damage, and I think it was problems with like inflammation of the myocardium, and they were all like a huge number that weren't hospitalized that seemed to have those kinds of issues like this far out, which is kind of not great. Yeah.
And a lot of these folks were folks who were low risk individuals, mild severity of disease. So the virus may not kind of wipe you out to the point where you're feeling systemically weak and fatigued. You might just be trucking along through your day with like a cough or maybe a fever to some mild degree, and it just sort of feels like a cold. But that doesn't mean that's necessarily what's happening with your organs. And since we have no direct monitoring system for our organs, they're either just kind of working or not working. you may not know what's going on inside. But there's a pretty good chance, if you've had the coronavirus, that you're looking at some degree of organ impairment that may still be present 4 months out. And of course, that's another group that's being followed, because at this point, we don't know what long COVID means yet. It's people who've had the disease in March, April, and they're still just sick with some symptom, at least one symptom or more. Is that going to end? For some, it does. Some folks seem to have about a 3-month duration of symptoms afterwards, but there's still a significant minority that just staying sick and just staying chronically fatigued, developing fevers, or
we're going to see a huge number of papers over the next 20, 30 years, people who got COVID in their 20s and 30s, what their long-term outcomes are, because like I can't imagine having, heart damage in your 20s is really great in the long term.
Yeah. So, what's the long-term mortality impact of that? I don't know, and I don't know if anybody knows.
No.
But it's certainly something we need to keep an eye on. To that point, this I'm not sure how this got into science, but it's a good story. The Wisconsin bar owner.
Yeah, why is that in science? That's weird. Yeah.
But hey, there it is. So Wisconsin bar owner who hosted the chummy Axios interview with Donald Trump Jr. back in March now has COVID and wants to punch the president. Yes, punch the president. I shouldn't be here, Oshkosh bar owner in ICU with COVID-19, angry with Trump over out-of-control pandemic. We'll put that story up for you.
I put the link in the chat already.
Oh, you did already?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, look at this poor bastard, right? You think, wow, this is going to be a lift for my business. The president shows up. And, oh, wow, here's the press, and let's have an interview, and this is great, and nobody's wearing masks, and everybody's all smiles. And now this guy's in the ICU, and there's no shortage of people who end up in the ICU that don't come out. At least they don't come out breathing. So I don't blame this guy for his anger one bit. As he spoke by phone, he struggled with short breaths and was interrupted at times by fits of coughs. I don't want them to go through this. I hope I get to go home. So he's talking about his family. Schultz, 64, is the co-owner of Oblio's, a bar in Oshkosh that is beloved by a city that now has the highest rate of COVID-19 infection in the country, according to the New York Times announcement. Ouch.
They're giving Sturgis a run for their money. Nice.
They're giving, yeah. Yeah. Oh, and his fiance caught it as well.
Oh, well,
Fantastic.
He hopes it hasn't been passed to his 10-year-old son who hasn't received his test results. I couldn't breathe anymore, Schultz said about his decision to go to the hospital. I couldn't breathe and I had a fever, I had aches and pains, I had headaches. I never get headaches. And the tightness in my chest. And then he got pneumonia in both lungs, which is a hallmark of coronavirus viral pneumonia. And he's now on supplemental oxygen. And he lies on his stomach, so that's called prone positioning, to help reduce his symptoms. And he blows into a machine to exercise his lungs. Tries to go without oxygen, but when he does, alarms attached to a blood oxygen monitor ring. And the tubes must go back in his nose. Don't get coronavirus.
No.
Or at least, maybe you can't help getting the coronavirus. But my God, take precautions. Minimize your risks.
Yeah.
Rational risk reduction strategy.
And while you're at it, get your flu shot. Just, to make sure you don't get both.
Got mine a little over a week ago, 9 days ago.
No, I got mine Wednesday.
It's in there percolating away. One thing that's fascinating about the flu season this year is because of early efforts to kind of clamp down activity, flu forecasters are having a tough time figuring out what the mix should have been in the sample. So it's a bit of guesswork because the whole flu season, which is a good thing, kind of got stopped in its tracks, and so flu hasn't really started to percolate up the way it usually does. So with any luck, maybe, I'm dreaming. Don't bet on this. Bet against this. But I'm hoping that maybe we get through this bulge coronavirus second wave before the flu comes, because you do not want to get influenza and the coronavirus together. That's a little more physiological strain than your heart and blood vessels can handle safely.
You're kind of being sarcastic, right? A little more. Like honestly, the way I get the flu and the way COVID weakens you, I feel like it would just be a death sentence. Like,
it will kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
It will kill them dead. Yeah.
Not to mention just, the poor hospitals trying to keep up with patients with both, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, Rob, you want to talk about this chart we've got here? This
in other good
fixed
news.
chart. In other good news.
Oh yeah. So so this is an interesting chart because it's if you recall, way back in March, April, and we talked about this a lot on the show, there was basically deliberate undercounting and undertesting going on all across the U.S. And it was kind of for a number of reasons, because reagents weren't being distributed. It was nearly impossible to get a test throughout March and much of April.
CDSC tests were bad. The primers, the test didn't work.
The test didn't work for several weeks. It was insane.
Yeah.
And so there was an undercount of cases, but they've now corrected that amount. And so that dark red line has now been corrected to an orange line, and it tracks a much easier line to track, which is the hospitalization line. It's pretty easy to tell who gets hospitalized and who doesn't. That's a very discrete binary event. You're hospitalized or you're not.
Yeah. And they tend to check you in and keep track of those numbers. Yeah.
They do, yeah. And now what's interesting is that the better testing that we have matches the hospitalization rate. So cases go up, and then a few days later, a couple of weeks later, hospitalizations go up, and they have a similar peak, and they kind of roll off. And now, of course, what you see at the far right of that graph, the dark red line, is starting to climb again, and that slope of that line right now isn't as steep as the slope of the summer curve or even the April curve. But when you remember that catch-up red map that we showed you earlier, that slope's going to be peaking very fast, very soon.
It's also starting higher, right? Like the March slope started at 0.
Yeah.
And then zoomed up to, looks like 65K hospitalizations. But now it's starting at 30K. So, oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing I think about the first wave as well is that, I always think about whether or not the virus hits a particular area, like whether it hits a town or a school or whatever. It's really a binary event, right? Like it's either going to get there or it's not. And so so when things first started, right, there's kind of all these people that were like looking at, epidemiological curves and like, oh, this place is doing so much better than this. It's like, no, like it's just that event happened sooner rather than later. And so the first wave was, where it kind of like those little fires caught in all these places. Now the fire's everywhere, right? And so those can all grow, right, all simultaneously rather than just kind of growing where that little sort of initial spark was. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's like the thing that was on fire exploded. Yeah, you're totally right. And now there's like flaming debris everywhere, which is just setting more and more fires, right? Yeah.
So, that's not great. This is why I really dislike when people correct cases per population, because when you're actually looking at the spread of a disease, it's not a per population count, really, right?
No.
Yeah.
Right. And this was the real tell for armchair epidemiologists back in April, May. Some of them are still clinging to this. And the thing I kept explaining to people over and over and over and over and over and over and over is that a drop of ink spreads at the same rate in a puddle as in a pond, as in a lake, as in an ocean. It doesn't matter how big the body of water is. The drop of ink spreads at the same speed.
Right, and that is ink that turns water into more ink.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it converts the water into ink.
Converts the water into ink as it spreads, so there's now
you don't
more
get
ink
to say,
spread.
This is a large body of water, so this isn't a big problem.
Yeah.
No. It has nothing to do with the size of the body of water. It has to do with the expanding ink ball.
Rob, it's only one alien queen planting her eggs in people's chests. What is the worst that could possibly happen?
Yeah.
There's so many more people who don't have alien eggs in their chests.
I think a better analogy is actually sparks from a fire. So any given spark is going to ignite at the same rate, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've got more cases in a country, that's more sparks, right? Because each one of those can take off.
Or matches in a forest. It's just a match. The forest is huge. Come on.
Yeah.
It's one match per million trees. Big deal.
It's not like it's going to be a 1 million acre forest fire.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and if you've got like 20 matches in a giant forest versus 20 matches in a small forest, you're gonna have a big problem regardless.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah, exactly.
It's gonna get fires going. So,
yeah.
So remember that, folks. Exponential growth has nothing to do with the size of the population.
That's just your peak,
Until you
really.
reach population saturation.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes a
and I will say population size at least gives you some measure of capacity of the healthcare system.
Right.
Yeah.
So, the sort of capacity for Switzerland to handle 1,000 cases is going to be a lot smaller than, the capacity of the US, right?
Sure.
So that's useful. But in terms of spread.
And the other thing sorry, go.
Yeah, the other thing that people do that makes me really angry is when people do deaths per population. So, when the president says, well, we have only this many deaths per population. So I'm like, are you telling me then that American lives are worth less because there's more people
Big denominator
in America?
Yeah, just dilute the deaths by the denominator of the living.
I can answer that for Trump. Trump's answer is yes. He sees people as just resources, right? We'll have plenty of workers left over. We've got lots.
Can you imagine seeing a headline like earthquake in Peru, kills 1,000 people, but that's only 1 in a million in the country, so it's fine.
Yeah. Earthquake in Peru kills 1 per 1,000, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. You would never see that headline, right?
Pedestrian fatality in Vancouver kills 1 in 2.5 million.
Exactly. Yeah. So 1,000 deaths in one country is just as bad as 1,000 deaths in another. As far as I'm concerned. So.
And again, going back to our numbers, the world is up to 1.12 million deaths.
And oh boy, is that going to start to skyrocket.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 8.4 million, 40.3 million cases worldwide. It's just...
Yeah. But we're all getting monoclonal antibodies, right?
Right. We've all got, is it 1.5 million to do that?
Monoclonal antibodies. That's fabulous. Yeah, we talked about that last week. So 50,000 cases a day in the U.S. If Regeneron was to issue its entire supply of monoclonal antibodies right now, that's a 50,000 total doses they can provide. That's going flat out.
Antibodies are not cheap to make. I buy them sometimes. It's not. Yeah.
No.
So
these are great, big, complicated molecules. They take time. You got to grow them. You can't just make them. And anytime you got to grow a thing, there's going to be a rate limiting step involved. Or several.
Didn't they say $150,000 for the treatment or something like that? Or was
Could
it
be
1.5 million?
150,000 and $1 million. It starts with a big number to a very big number.
It depends too, how much of the R&D for that. I mean, usually with this kind of thing, there's an initial big investment step, and then the more doses you produce, the cheaper it gets per dose. But to a limit. So.
Well, thankfully, nobody's denying this is happening now that the numbers are huge, right? Nobody's denying masks work. Nobody's denying.
Now that the president of the United States himself has had it and had his moment of realization and pain and shame and doubt.
This is my passive-aggressive setup episode, Rob. Yeah. We're fine, right?
So
I just have a cup of coffee in the fire.
Yeah, so I hope I sent you this one, Katie. I don't know if I did, but Trump is now parroting this idea that masks are bad. Trump said twice this weekend that the CDC found that 85% of people who wear masks catch the coronavirus.
Not true.
Which is not actually even close to what the CDC said.
Well, I was going to say, how many people in the U.S. wear masks, right? So are you telling me that, even let's lowball it, say that only 100 million people in the U.S. are wearing masks. Does that mean that 85% of that 100 million have caught the coronavirus?
That's the way he phrased it. Yeah.
Boom. Boom.
Like,
Yeah.
boom, wear a mask, get the coronavirus.
So yeah, so this is an interesting tweet here that I'll kind of put in the and it's from a case control study that the CDC published in MMWR, Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, which we talked about weeks and weeks and weeks ago, back in the summer, I think, when we found out that the then Director of Health and Homeland Services was directly trying to change wordings going into editorial statements in MMWR. And everybody on medical Twitter had a freak out, and everybody else is like, "What are you freaking out about? I've never even heard of this before." And so what they did was what's called a case control study, where you find a number of people who have cases of a disease that's of interest, and then you match them to relevant controls from the population who don't have the disease, and you try to eliminate as many. Try to match them as closely as possible so you can study your variable of interest. And so what they were interested in finding out is what percentage of individuals who get the coronavirus versus don't have had close contact with proven cases of coronavirus. And what they did was they found, I forget the total population samples, but it was about 100 to 150 in each group of coronavirus cases, and then they went and matched them to controls. And in the groups who had the close contacts, 85% of those were wearing masks. And so they matched them up with a control group of individuals who had respiratory symptoms but not the coronavirus. And you pick your controls in a case control study because you're trying to eliminate variables. This isn't a randomized study. It's a way of looking at risks to try and figure out how important is a risk in getting an outcome versus not getting the outcome. And what they found is that individuals who had the coronavirus were about 2.5 to 3 times more likely to have had a close contact than individuals who did not have the coronavirus. So reaffirming from another perspective what we already know, which is that close contacts with individuals with the coronavirus are a really important factor in the spread of the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. Shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's good confirmatory science to kind of always be testing your hypothesis from multiple perspectives to really prove it out, especially in something really important like this.
I think this was, so I read the CDC report. The other thing that really jumped out to me, so there are actually 2 things. One was that the people who got coronavirus were also something like 2 to 3 times more likely to have eaten at a restaurant. And that was a really big predictor of coronavirus risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, or have gone to a bar was another big one.
Fascinating. Okay. So, so, and in this group, about 85% of them reported frequent mask compliance. And so from this, we've kind of morphed into this idea that, well, 85% of people who wear masks get the coronavirus. Oh my God, guys. Oh my God.
Right.
But it doesn't really show that at all. I mean, if anything, what it shows is that, yeah, you can catch the coronavirus while wearing a mask. But we started with people who had the coronavirus. We didn't take 100 people with masks, set them out loose in the wild. These kinds of studies are ongoing, by the way, where we follow people through time who are mask wearers versus those who aren't. And by the way, you know, masks are very good, very protective. You can't make any inference at all about the relationship between mask use and catching the coronavirus in this study because this wasn't one of the factors being studied as a risk.
Well, and the other problem, right, was that the mask use was self-reported. And the other sort of big concern was that the people who got coronavirus were way more, I think it was like more than 40% of them had a household member who had coronavirus.
Yeah.
And so how many people are in their house wearing their mask? Like, how often does that happen?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you ate in a restaurant, you didn't do it through a mask.
No, that's the other issue.
Yeah. And this is a thing that happens in self-report studies is people tend to over-report their level of virtue and participation in health behaviors because they want to look good. We all want to look good, right? So if you're in a diet study and somebody, you know, in a really enthusiastic study coordinator talks to you and said, "So, how did it go this week? Okay, did you eat your bran? Oh, that's wonderful. Did you eat it every day?" Yeah, bran every day.
Every day, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is actually like a classic sort of trade-off. Is there's always this trade-off between sort of naturalism of the study versus like actually controlling for every variable, right? So you could bring, if you're doing a diet study or like a coronavirus, transmission study, although that would be horribly unethical, you could do it in the lab and control every variable and know for sure who's wearing a mask and who's not and when, right? But that's a hard study to do with large numbers of people. You're not going to be able to do that with thousands and thousands of people, right? Like that's
right.
And so the trade-off is, with these sort of self-report studies, you can get a much bigger sample size because you're not having to bring all of those people to come live in your lab for several weeks, and you can often do it for longer periods of time. And so this is kind of one of those classic cases, is that you need these various lines of evidence. You need the lab, studies that are super controlled. And then you also need the sort of big naturalistic studies, and hopefully they give you the same result, right?
Right, yeah. And or the truth sort of falls somewhere in the middle. Ultimately, what we need is a kind of a Fitbit for masks. And that would really give us some very good quality data on who's wearing masks and who isn't. Because what's interesting is in studies like that, people start out highly compliant because they know they're being Fitbit monitored, but after a while they're like, and they revert to their normal behavior anyway. So it doesn't typically tend to impact the results.
That's why I don't do better, Rob, because I know I'll just give it up and it'll just be a waste of time. So
yeah.
I'll just be honest about it.
Exactly how much of that time got wasted. So that's the 85% of people who wear masks get the coronavirus study, which itself was a really interesting study that showed the importance of restaurants, bars, and exposure to contact.
The other piece with it, I was going to say, is that there.
Oh, we lost you, Katie.
Oh, no!
Oh, now you're back.
Okay, so you're back.
I think you were talking a little too quietly for whatever your level is for.
You're a low talker.
No, I'm not a low talker.
Start
your microphone doesn't think you're a high talker.
Oh.
Go ahead. Start again, Katie.
So the other issue is that there's been some discussion about actually getting coronavirus through your eyes, and that a mask doesn't prevent that. So there was a couple of studies that looked at like people who wear like glasses, and it actually.
We talked about this.
Yeah. So, fundamentally the mask is slightly protective for you, but really the idea is that you're protecting the people around you if you are infected, right?
But it is two-way infection. It protects outbound and inbound, and glasses protect too, if you need glasses. This is a good reason to not wear contacts if you're a contact wearer. Just go back to your glasses for a while.
Just lab goggles for everyone. It'll be fine.
I'm just going to grab my old paintball mask, which just wraps around my head and has goggles that fit there. And mine has a built-in little fan with a 9-volt battery, so it won't fog. And it's an exhaust fan, so yeah.
Halloween is going to be wild this year.
Now, since we're running a little late, do we want to just jump straight to denials for the week? Because I just cannot wait to share this video.
The YouTube one? Sure.
The Mike Love. Yeah.
The Mike Love one. Yes.
Yeah. So those of you who are of a certain age will know that there was a band in the 60s. It was rather famous. They were called the Beach Boys. I'm sure everyone's heard of the Beach Boys. Or if you haven't, there's no shame. There's no blame. Billie Eilish didn't know who Van Halen was, and that's fine, right? You don't have to know about the music that I liked when I was a kid. It's just I'm not going to put that demand on you. But anyway, if you happen to have heard of the Beach Boys, they broke up a number of years ago, but their lead singer, Mike Love, has continued to wander the earth, calling himself the Beach Boys, much to the chagrin of the two surviving members of the Beach Boys, like Brian Wilson, who wrote all the songs. Dennis Wilson died tragically. He drowned in a boating accident back in the 60s. So that was he was the third one. And then, of course, there's the Beach Boy, who I always forget. He probably played bass.
Was that Jardine?
I play bass. I'm allowed to say that.
That was Jardine, I think, wasn't it?
Al Jardine. Yeah, Al Jardine. So they went their way. So Mike Love keeps wandering the earth in this Vichy Beach Boys, calling it the Beach Boys and playing concerts. And before we get into today's big story, back in May, Mike Love came out of songwriting retirement to bless the earth with this beauty of a song, which Joe is going to cue up for you now.
Oh dear. Can I just start cringing now?
Yes.
For celebrations. Nobody ever even thought about closing down entire nations. Washing hands and wearing masks.
John Stamos looking pretty good for 57 there.
Shaking hands is a thing.
But Mike Love's like 80.
Yeah. Like 79, but yeah, almost 80. And I gotta say, for 79, he looks fine. Like,
This too shall pass. Well, I believe the best is yet to come. So let's get back to having fun, fun, fun in the sun.
pandering! The pandering, it hurts me!
In the meantime, people, there can be no doubt. Lots of folks deserve a big shout out. First responders and the National Guard. Doctors and nurses all working real hard.
So I was like, Nat, why is he mentioning National Guard? And then you find out, oh, because he needed a rhyme for working real hard. That's all.
It's kind of like a viral Super Bowl. So do unto others, it's good for the soul.
Viral Super Bowl.
States with the unified goal. God bless America, that's how we roll.
Pandering.
People are wondering how long it'll last. As the saying goes, this too shall pass. Well, I believe the best is yet to come. So let's get back to having fun, fun, fun in the sun.
Wait, why is our Canadian flag?
We're
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
lemonade. Just be
Didn't even notice that.
don't be afraid.
I guess one of their musicians is in Canada.
The sooner we do
This all looks like they did their tracks individually.
Slide solo.
Shit, man, I could do bar chords with a slide.
how long it'll last. As the
Can't
saying
without.
goes, this too shall pass. Well, I
I do not approve of the Canadian in there.
let's get back to having fun
This isn't too much of a...
in the sun.
So this song isn't totally denialist.
Oh, we're not at the denialist part yet.
I know.
No.
This is like rah. Let's rally together. Let's
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let's solve the Corona beast
It's
and wash
still-
our hands.
still
and then get
cringy.
back in front of the sun. So,
Uh-oh.
as you all know, 2 weeks ago we gave a Lifetime Denialism Achievement Award to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who, as you may have heard, is running for re-election. President.
Hadn't heard that. No.
Right,
Really?
yeah. Maybe you haven't heard that because he's having some funding issues. His campaign is nearly broke. And so today, he had to have a fundraiser in Orange County, California. Tickets were sold for between $2,500 and $100,000. And you'll never guess who his special guest musical act was. Okay,
You'll guess, considering what we just played.
I think
Can
you'll
I,
guess.
can I just not? Can I pretend that?
No.
Oh. I really want to know what the other boys think. I really do.
Yeah.
Ah, wow.
It's a good question. We have a link here from Pitchfork.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's yeah. Put this up. It's because it's got that great picture.
Of well, I'll just yeah, okay.
So it turns out that rah, let's all gather together and defeat the coronavirus and have fun in the sun. Mike Love, leader of the Vichy Beach Boys, is a raging Trump supporter.
Oh.
And the Vichy Beach Boys, I'm calling them the Vichy Beach Boys, like Vichy France, right? One part of the legitimately elected government became pro-Hitler, and there was that little kind of Nazi bit of France. decided to, so the Rump Beach Boys
Rump.
headline this concert. And
Wow.
Brian Wilson disavows Mike Love's Beach Boys playing Trump fundraiser. Wilson and Al Jardine. We have absolutely nothing to do with the Trump benefit today in Newport Beach. Zero.
And there's Kid Rock in the back of that fucking photo too.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! I missed that. That's Kid Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
Probably for the best.
Oh, so I know we all heard and love that song from May. It certainly was near and dear to my heart. Certainly tonight wasn't the first time I ever heard that song. But whatever good karma Mike Love got himself from that tune, which I'm sure had at least 20 views on YouTube, probably had an audience at least the size of Viral Trends. Right down the toilet. Right down the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
The old wave a bag of money in front of the aging rocker, and woo! Yeah, I'll come and be the headliner. Planetary coronavirus denier in chief.
Mm-hmm.
So 122,000 views on that Mike Love song, This Too Shall Pass.
Wow, he's right up there with BTS.
There aren't they like million? Okay, that was sarcasm.
Like,
gotcha.
yeah, 100, yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
Oh.
Yeah,
Some of
122,000.
my 1 minute medical school videos have more views than that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the number of pre-meds is infinite in my. So.
The fun little
Sorry.
video we're about to show has almost 3 times as many views, and it's nowhere near as old.
And it's only been out, for what, a day and a half? 3 days, maybe, tops?
Let me look at the, hold on. Let me look at the date on this. I have it full screened already because it's queued up. Oh, come on, computer, stop being slow. Oh, wow, yes, it came out yesterday, and it's already at 3 times.
Yeah, so we're gonna roll into the palate cleanser for the people.
Yeah, this is our good stuff. We're so sorry for subjecting you to all the rest. Please enjoy this one from oh God, I can't. I'll look at his name later. I'm sorry. We'll give you a link actually, and you can go give this a thumbs up. This is great.
Wear a mask, wear a mask. Is this really much to ask? Tie some fabric round your face. Oh, it's the simplest of tasks. At the gym, at the store, don't treat it like such a chore. No, these mandates aren't malicious. All your theories are fictitious. Stop the lies, stop the fights. No one's taking away your rights. All this speculation makes me need a flask. Come on and read some data. All you masturbators, wear a mask, wear
Mask
a mask,
debaters.
wear a mask.
Yeah, I just got that joke
It's a
too.
mask, it's a mask. Heaven's sakes, it's just a mask. Such a shame that asking folks to follow rules gets you harassed. You can shout, you can glare, but listen, Karen, I don't care. Never seen folks so dramatic over a f***ing piece of fabric. Hard to breathe, feels too hot. Quit your bitching, there's a thought. Suck a top, and don't you give me any sass. We've got a lot to do, and it's not just the flu. So wear a mask. 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 Get your head out of your ass. Try to think of someone other than yourself is all we ask. While you sit watching Fox, ignoring science and the docs. While your ignorance is showing as the death toll keeps on growing. Case by case, test by test. Don't forget, you're not oppressed till we put this damn pandemic in the past. Try not to be so grouchy, have some faith in Fauci. Wear a mask, wear a mask, wash your hands and wear a mask.
Noah Lindquist singing in the ensemble Ashley Young. There we go. Just fantastic. Just
Delightful.
superb stuff. So we had an anti-mask, anti-lockdown protest the other day here in Vancouver. A bunch of, including some of the outright Nazi sons of Odin were there, and it was total nonsense. And after seeing that video, all I wanted to do was be up in a high building with a giant stereo system, playing it as loud as I could at them over and over and over again.
I just loved Mrs. Potts, just like coming straight out with the filth. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Wow, you know the names of the characters.
Oh, it was my favorite movie when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. All right.
What
Yeah,
you're telling
Mrs.
me?
Potts.
Fiction where a girl who reads a lot gets to have a big adventure. Yeah, no, it didn't speak to me at all.
Didn't speak to me at all. All right.
The Beast is just misunderstood.
Oh.
He's not an abuser.
Why does this town people hate me so much when I'm around singing about shit? They're boring. That. Anyway.
So that was a great pick-me-up. And I want to mention something that I've heard a little bit about this show the last week or so, and then the other day I saw a friend of mine, Ian Boothby, tweet about it, saying it was the anti-2020 show. It's called Ted Lasso. It's on Apple TV. We're not going to play the video, but here is the trailer for it. That's the one. And it is lovely and positive and cheerful and hilarious, and like its jokes land right. And I cannot recommend watching Ted Lasso enough, because like there's too much. You need something positive, and this is not a mean show at all. It's just great. I love it. Check that out if you can, if you've got Apple TV. Or
everyone needs wholesome in 2020. Everyone needs wholesome.
Yeah, it's so what it is it's the story of an English Premier League football team hiring an American football coach, not a soccer coach, but a football coach from the minor leagues. And he's only been doing it for a year. He led this young team to a championship, but is known in America for being overly positive and doing this weird little dance with his team and all that stuff. And so it's great. It's because he knows nothing about soccer. So it's the whole fish out of water thing, but lands so great. I binged the whole thing in a day and a half. So yeah, I highly recommend everybody check that out if they can. It'll bring you up. It's a good thing. It's much needed.
So on that note, I think that's our show.
That is the show for this week. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks for jumping in, Dr. Marshall.
Yes.
Pleasure as
was
always.
a pleasure. Oh, it was fun.
That was fun. Yeah. Thanks everyone who comes out and watch. Thanks to the BC Humanists. Did we mention the BC Humanists at the top of the show?
We did not mention. I'm sorry. We're brought to you by the BC Humanists. Check them out at bchumanist.ca.
Thank you, Humanists. And as Joe usually says, but I guess I'll say it tonight, spread the word, not the virus. And we're out of here, people.
Bye. Hitting buttons.
Hooray!